This video is a look at the best keyboards to use whilst working in Blender. So I've used a fair few keyboards in Blender. I'm going to talk generally about what to look out for, but I want to focus on two in particular that I think might be of interest to you. If you like what I do, then do check out the playlists on this channel and my website for more great content. The links to the products shown are in the description, but not affiliated, and I'm not sponsored by these companies, although I have been sent out samples to review. So the first thing to note when thinking about a keyboard is to ideally make sure you have a numpad, as that can really help to speed things up in Blender. Although it's not so bad since 2.8, as we can now use the gizmo to navigate to different 3D viewports, and you can apply things to quick favorites like local view, but it still helps to have a numpad in my opinion for speed. Apart from that, out of all the keyboards I've tried, I've never really thought to myself, oh, if only I had a better keyboard, or I really need this on my keyboard. I've used several cheap keyboards with Blender and all have worked well and never really had any issues with the quality. Obviously it's important to check reviews before you buy it for build quality to make sure that nothing's going to fall apart, but I think the keyboard is not something that will make much of a difference to your Blender experience. So generally I wouldn't rush out to get a new keyboard. In terms of things like mechanical keyboards, I really don't see any particular reason to buy one. I could see it making a difference for those that code and have to type in lots of words. They might need the extra comfort and prefer that sort of tangible feel. But in Blender, I really don't think it makes a difference. I would say though that I've had some slight difficulty with Bluetooth setups in terms of the compatibility, and that was usually more with the mouse rather than the keyboard. So if you've got a mouse and keyboard Bluetooth combo, I'd probably spend a little bit more money and go for a trusted brand. That way you won't have to keep sort of uninstalling and reinstalling the drivers, as sometimes the Windows updates seem to kind of mess things up occasionally. On a Mac I don't think you have those sort of problems. Incidentally, the mouse I'm using is the 3D Connections mouse, which I'm very happy with, but it is very expensive. But that has actually made a fair bit of difference to me because the mice I've had in the past, Bluetooth ones that is, have all had compatibility issues where I've had to try and fiddle around with drivers and reset things. This one hasn't. But that's not been the case for any of the keyboards, so if it's not combined with your mouse then you don't have to worry about that sort of issue. There are two keyboards which I want to talk about and give closer attention to. The first one is the Logickeyboard and the second is the 3D Connections newest keyboard release. The reason why I'm mentioning the Logickeyboard is that this might be useful to a beginner that wants to see the keyboard shortcuts at a glance and can help them to commit those keyboard shortcuts to memory. I myself didn't find it that useful, but occasionally when I first got it, I did look down and see a shortcut that I didn't use much, and it helped me to think about it and start using it. The keyboard itself is very heavy and sturdy. It's got some USB ports on the side, which is nice. However, it is expensive at around £100. And that's without its special Brexit shipping costs, which we have to put up with now in most of the UK. So again, I don't think it's necessary, but it might be something you want to look into if you can afford it and if you want to learn those keyboard shortcuts quicker. Now the second option, which is the one I'm currently using and very happy with, is the 3D Connections keyboard. The main reason I like this is because the numpad is movable. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but having the numpad on the left is much quicker to access, especially for things like sculpting or texture painting when you have the pen in your dominant hand, which in my case is my right hand. I can then use the numpad without having to reach across, so it does make it that bit faster. I can also easily program the extra buttons with the 3D Connections properties program that runs in the background, and I've got lots of extra keys on the keyboard and the numpad to set up functions which are specific to different programs. So if you're in something like Critter, you can have different buttons programmed as opposed to when you're in Blender. And you can jump from one program to another seamlessly, and the buttons you program just work. So this is my main choice, but again you get what you pay for, and it's an expensive choice coming in at £109 or $129. Again, I wouldn't rush out to buy it, but if you do want to speed up your workflow, it's the best option I've used and continue to use. So in conclusion, you don't need a fancy keyboard for Blender, but if you're trying to optimize and speed up your workflow slightly, then my choice is the 3D Connections keyboard, and mouse for that matter. If you're a beginner wanting to learn the shortcuts, then the Logickeyboard could be very helpful. My main advice would be that if you're using Blender very regularly, then yes, I would choose the 3D Connections keyboard, because it will speed things up for you. But you don't need to get keyboard envy, as the increased speed in your workflow will not be that dramatic. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps.